How is technology redefining retirement planning? This week on Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts, 5 items on the online sort that we're going to talk about to see how it changes things for not only us as the end user, but also the advisor as well. Coming up today here on the podcast. Welcome into Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts with CPA and personal financial specialist, Phil Putney. Now let's get rolling with today's show. Hey everybody, welcome into the podcast. Phil and I are going to take a look at some of the technology changes that have happened that he's seen through his career and see how it affects what it is that he does. You know, it certainly can affect us on our end as the end user as well, but also how does it affect your advisor? How does it affect what they're going through or dealing with when trying to use all this new tech? So we're going to talk about a few places this week here on the show and just see if it's a good thing, bad thing, or what when it comes to technology. What's going on, my friend? How you doing?
Doing really good. Doing good.
Yeah.
Spring sprung. So
spring be sprung. And my
allergies tell me that. So
that's right. And we do the best we can with what we got. But
that's right.
You know, you've been doing this a long time, right? Not to, throw you under the bus.
I was going to say, just go ahead and call me old. That's fine.
That's right. I'm right there with you. But you've been doing this a long time, so you've seen a lot of things change. And the industry clearly has changed a
dramatically
ton, probably in even just the last 5 years, let alone the last 25 years, right? So I got a couple places where I want to talk about this week, just kind of see, what do you think about it? Is it been helpful? Has it been not helpful? Not only just from your end but from the potential clients when they come in, right? Is it made us better armed? Has it made us more dangerous? Whatever that looks like, right? Let's start with the elephant. We'll start with the 800-pound gorilla, whatever you want to call it. It's Google, right? Yeah. Everybody Googles everything. All the flipping time, right? So matter of fact, you might Google right now, like, what is Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts? So it's easy to go look up something real quick. I mean, you don't even, if you just, even if you wanted to do like a quick math thing, you could type that into the Google thing and it would give you the answer, right? So I think it's a great tool, but obviously like anything else, it's also a very, it's just so big that it can be a very, open-ended kind of never-ending kind of thing.
Well, and that's part of the challenge too. I mean, it's a tool. So interesting anecdote, like on my side, how does it make a difference with me? So looking back at the era when I went to school, got my master's in tax, I can remember having to buy the IRS code and regulations, right? So the code, that was only 2 volumes of 500-700 pages, so
you had to buy the book?
Yeah, 2 books that are, probably 3 inches thick each. Well, the regulations, that was a series of 7 or 8 books of that, so, I mean, you had to carry some of these books to class every single time, because they were going to go through different sections, and it was just ridiculous. And they changed. And the next year, they added more regulations. So you had to get a supplemental so now, no, I don't need any of that. It's just, I type it into Google and, look at the IRS website and there it is. So, so it's made that side of it so much easier because information is readily available. To consumers too. Yeah, this is nothing new. Everyone knows this, to consumers too. To me, I think that the challenge though, for the consumer standpoint is there is so much information and disinformation, or just, what's the reality? What's the truth? There's so much opinion out there too. And frankly, hey, we're giving opinion here all the time. You just got to be careful of what you're getting and Google's going to give you many options.
Well, just how many options you might be wondering. Well, let me tell you. I typed in financial advice while you were chatting, and about 1.9 billion. Yeah,
so it might take results. You just a couple of days to run through those, and
maybe just might take a little while to go through there, right? But as soon as you do that, obviously you get the sponsored ads, right? So you get those paid things right up front because they're hoping you'll just click the easiest one. Because to your point, there's 1.9 billion. Are you really going to scroll?
About down? Page 2, you're done.
Who even goes off page 1?
And it brings up an interesting point and I think people are becoming more aware of it, but page 1 and probably into page 2 is not just pure search of data. That's advertising. So this is quote unquote data that's getting fed to you, right?
If you think about that breakdown, you typically see the sponsored ones, and they're the first 5 or 6. And then there's the ones, and typically most people will go to the ones right after the sponsored ones. But you have to wonder, how did they
Right.
get all the way up there? That far up out of 1.9 billion if they're
I mean,
not,
there's a whole industry now of what they call SEO, search engine optimization. So how do you get there, right? How do you position things and basically pay to get to the top? So yes, I mean, it's not as, it's not like going to an encyclopedia where there is no, I mean, it is what it is. It's a printed book, right? You can't, kind of hard to change those facts. And
I guess if we really wanted to be fair to both sides, you could look at an encyclopedia or a book that was printed, and that's just one set of viewpoints. At
right,
least with
you get
Google,
many.
that
Yeah,
you will be able to search out opposite viewpoints of the thing that you found information on if you'd like to,
absolutely.
right? So at least you can get point counterpoint a little easier. I said you could type in math problems real
Yeah.
fast, right? Like you can just on Google, you could just do like, what's 75% of, 217,000 if you wanted
Yep.
to, or something like that. Well, there's also online calculators, and they're all over the place too. And you can online calculate anything, your mortgage, your retirement, all kinds of stuff. What do you think about these?
I mean, to me, it's kind of like the old rules of thumb of retirement, right? The 4% rule or whatever it is. It's probably a good place to start, give you an idea, point you in the right direction. But at the end of the day, and this goes with Google too, anything you're looking up, any online calculator, you have to come back to why is it there? What's the purpose, right? And is it really going to give you the most thorough information? And interesting anecdote on this very fact. So I was at an advisor conference this past couple of days, and one of the sponsors there has their version of a Roth conversion calculator, an online calculator, and he pulls up one online that, the typical one, oh, it's only got like 6 or 7 different inputs. And he was touting that his has 22 inputs and how much more accurate it is with these 22 inputs. And we got into an interesting discussion afterwards. And my point to him was, well, that's still not enough because there's all these variables that change. So, I mean, it's not just an online calculator that it's a one-time quick snapshot, right? Financial planning, retirement planning is about scenarios and running different strategies and concepts. A calculator is going to give you one of those, right? And it's not going to optimize and know how to blend and change the different pieces. So again, just be careful. Don't make I would say don't make permanent hard decisions on what you're getting from an online calculator. It's a good place to maybe start a discussion, right? Hey, what does this look like? Okay, yeah, run it through an online calculator, get a feel for it, and then take it to the next level.
Yeah, I like that idea of it being kind of it's a little better than the back of the napkin math because it might be a little more accurate, right? But it's still kind of a high tech version of that, if you will. What about do it yourself? I mean, you talk about just going and getting more information and education and continuing to learn your skill set as well. But the do it yourself trading platforms, your Scott Trades and E-Trades, and they're all buying each other left and right on a regular basis. But I mean, I think these things can be really fantastic. And you're talking about information and education. But man, when I go on to one of mine and look at them, when I go on to like Schwab or something, I'm like,
oh yeah.
I mean, you can get lost in the analytics.
To me, this really kind of depends on what your interests are and where you want to fit in that overall financial planning process. There's a lot of clients that are more do-it-yourselfer from an investment standpoint. And if that's something you really enjoy and want to take that on, then there's the avenues for you to do it.
Yeah.
More often than not, the concern I have with it in scenarios that I see is that married couple, right? So let's say maybe it's the husband that, he's always managed his own 401ks or even maybe their own accounts, and they've got he's got a side account at Vanguard or Fidelity or whatever it is. And he's always kind of managed it and,
nothing wrong with that.
Picked his own funds and investments, maybe even individual stocks. And it's something he's enjoyed. That's awesome. Take that into account. Sure. Maybe you want to continue with that. Maybe not. You have to ask, is that something you want to continue to do in retirement? Is that where you want to sit in front of the computer every day for how many hours?
Do you want that new second job?
Right. But the more important aspect to me is what happens when you're gone, right? So does your spouse know any of this? Do they even care to know any of this? And when you're gone, especially if it's a sudden something happens, where are they at? They have no one now and no plan, no strategy. And that's the other aspect of it too, because quote unquote financial planning, most people think it's all about the investments, right? And that's one aspect. That is kind of I liken it to building a house all the time with a client, right? You have to have the blueprint first. What are we trying to accomplish? How do all these pieces fit together? Now let's look at the investments that you have and make them work according to that blueprint. More often than not, in fact, a lot of advisors, more broker type advisors, and when clients are doing it, they're starting with the investments. It's all about the investments fitting the lifestyle. Well, yeah, no, you got to understand what you're doing with them first. Don't let the investments drive what's going on. Should be the other way around.
There's an excitement in saying, I own a bit of this company, or I own a bit of that company.
Absolutely.
And so you kind of want to go do that. I did that myself. But again, I've also talked to advisors all the time. So I know, I'm not one, but I know enough to know that it's like, okay, I'm going to have for lack of a better term, it's your casino money, right? So I'm going to have my kind of speculative casino money that I have fun with on these online platforms. But if I lose it, yeah, it'll suck, but it won't destroy my retirement.
You haven't destroyed your retirement. And that's the other aspect too, is that things are much different in retirement than they were saving for retirement. Different strategies, different concepts. So yeah, for that client that really enjoys it, a lot of times that's what it comes down to is, do you want to manage and be responsible for retirement that way? I mean, if you really enjoy it, then let's keep that taxable account, whatever it is, the brokerage account. Go for it. Have fun. Watch it, monitor it. It's not that big of a deal. You enjoy it. Absolutely enjoy it. But, for your spouse's sake, if nothing else, have a strategy and a plan and somebody that you're working with that can help walk through that process and kind of take on that responsibility.
So we're talking about these 5 kind of online, I don't know, trends, things, items, whatever, that kind of, have changed the face of financial planning and retirement planning. And not only just for us end users, but also for the people that do this every day, like Phil.
Right.
So Phil, I'm going to do 2 more here because we did 1 through 3 already. Educational webinars, online courses, things of that nature. You might see this, learn how to 10x your money, and learn how to this, that, and the other. And I want to kind of pose this in the question because you teach on tons of advisors. I talk to advisors all across the country that are certified. They're financial planners. They have the right licensing. They have the right designations. They do, they're helping clients every day. They offer online educational things as well and webinars. So I think it's like this interesting bag, like with anything with the internet, there's really good stuff out there. And then there's the stuff that might just be looking to get your tuition, like your $49 to learn how to 10x your money kind of thing, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to understand what the goal is of it, right? Yes. I mean, the 10x your money, I mean, that kind of stuff, the tuition, a lot of times, it's all about that. They're just spinning this course. Or it's the 59 to get into that. And, all of that to get our, full blown course, it's 199 or it's a, monthly subscription or it's, so understand.
And add on this and add on this.
Yeah. What's the end goal with it? And I mean, hey, we teach online courses. We, have taught our classes online. We teach them in person too. And yeah, at the end of the day, I don't do that just out of the, altruism of my heart. I enjoy teaching. I love it. It's fun. And I think it's vital to retirees to understand all these aspects. But at the end of the day, I'm not doing it just because I like it. I've got to live too and make a living. It's a business. I do it because I get clients. But there's no catch to it, right? I'm not charging for it. We have a lot of people that come through our classes that we don't end up working with, and that is fine because we have other people that come through it that at the end of it have a good base level of education. And I tell this to the classes that we're teaching. It's like, at the end of the day, this is my goal. There's a lot of decisions you're faced with in retirement. You have to understand pros and cons. We talked a little bit in the prior show on Medicare and the different healthcare costs. Well, that's you have to understand pros and cons and ins and outs. Come away with a more informed decision. If through that process you decide, I really think I need some help, great. Let's sit down and talk and see if we're fit and it makes sense to move forward. If not, at least you have a base level of education.
And I think educational webinars and online courses, especially directly from, again, licensed, proper professionals, not to say that some of these, flashier courses are not licensed professionals. They could be. But again, just kind of think about the end game. If it's just like, hey, here's a bit of a webinar on a how-to about why a Roth IRA, might be the right tool for you. To me, that's a lot
education.
different than
right.
learn how to maximize, learn how to make, get into gold or something like that. Those just feel very flashy, salesy, versus just educational.
Just going to understanding what the end goal of that class is, right? I mean, are you being sold something, or is it true education with an opportunity for help if you want it? Yeah, I mean, those are kind of two different aspects.
Absolutely. But the technology is nice. It does give you the option, right? So you can sit in your jams and learn a little something if you want to.
Just
right?
like the podcast. You can get one of those sleepless nights, flip on the podcast, and hopefully it doesn't put you to sleep. But
there you go. Well, and that's a great point too, right? You could kind of roll this into it, but I guess we can even roll that one into this last point here, which is social media financial influencers. Technically, that we would fall into that category, right? The thing that's interesting here to me, and you could roll this into your Kramer and so on and so forth from the cable shows. If you really
I mean, that kind of ties into it. It's the same thing. The influencers, talking heads, if you want to put it that way, right?
We're baby talking heads, Phil, you and I are, right? But to your point, you said it earlier, because you're trying to educate, but you're also trying to solicit for clients that fit your needs, that you're looking for in your client base. And of course, that you're able to help, because it's got to be that two-way street. But what blows my mind about what's changed in this, Phil, you're a fiduciary, right? And, you're a CPA, you've got licenses, you've got designations, and you have hurdles that you have to make sure that you're checking off. You have checks and balances from different, things out there. Now it's gotten to the point where anybody can say anything on like Instagram or something and pop it up there and put, well, this isn't financial advice, but if it were me, I would,
it's like, well, wait a minute.
And they're giving financial advice.
But because they're not licensed, they're not regulated, they're not, there's no, they just have to come out with a disclosure that this is not financial advice. I am not a professional giving you, but,
and what's right. And what's crazy is they'll have, 100,000 views because of whatever, because they've dedicated themselves to it, or they're shooting it in, Maui, or they're doing some interesting thing or whatever. And you're just sitting in your office, kind of, but it's interesting. It's just like, it's a weird world that we live in. I see them sometimes for all kinds of different demographics. I see one with this professional dancer, and he's like talking about how much education he has as a professional dancer. And he's showing all these amazing dance moves. And then he shows a TikTok person doing, basic dance moves that just about anybody can do at your local club. And they have way more views than he does. And he's like, I don't get it. And that happens in every industry.
That's the crazy thing with this whole online industry and where it's going and has gone is even podcasts, right? So why do we do the podcast? I'm doing it as education purely. I love it. I love talking about these things. That's why we teach the class. It's a way of me kind of staying in front of even our current clients, or, maybe people that have attended the class that still follow me, that at some point, hey, they might raise their hand and say, hey, you know what, Phil, we met once, or, I really like what you said. Maybe we need to talk. That's great. That's why I do this, right? There's other people that will do this to get as many hits and followers as they can. And then they quote unquote monetize that, where now they can have all these paid advertising and different things happening that's starting to generate revenue. So, I mean, it becomes a revenue stream to them. It's more about that than it is about giving education. What gets the most clicks,
right? It's like all of a sudden, it's all of a sudden brought to you by Quicken, right? Or whatever the case might be, and just saying Phil's tax is brought to you by a cup of water. just a plain old cup of water. But that's a great point.
At the end of the day, you have to understand what's the end game of whatever it is, whoever it is you're following, whether it's one of these talking heads, what are they trying to sell? Do they have a program? Do they have a, whatever it is, that they want you to buy into? Online cable, that kind of thing. I mean, it's all about advertising. It's about views, because views generate higher cost for advertising, so you get the crazies on there that yell and scream and do, all sorts of stuff and have all these opinions. People watch it and think it's real financial advice, where you got to be careful. What's the end game? What is their credentials? What are they really trying to get you to do? Understand what you're watching and don't say all of them are the same, because they're not.
They're not. And even somebody who can be really helpful, like Ramsey, he's got obviously a massive thing.
But he's not. He can get on there and say, get into a great growth mutual fund that generates, some crazy percentage. It's just like, but he's not licensed.
But some of his stuff has helped a lot of people. So I'm not saying that everybody's doing it with bad intentions, but he also has courses. He also has books,
Correct.
And so on and so forth.
Oh, and he's got a whole group of advisors that, you follow his advisor channel that they pay to be on his channel. Although I've always found that interesting because he's not an advisor or licensed, but yet he has a group of advisors that pay him to get these leads basically from him. So it's
capitalism. We all know that, everybody's trying to do different things.
He's got to make a living.
Everybody's
got to
make a living, right? So just be, interesting how the world has changed. And obviously, again, no shock here. We've not dropping a scoop that the internet has absolutely ridiculously and smart and, just the smartphone itself, not even just the internet, but I think the combination of the smartphone and the internet has absolutely changed our world in every possible, it's changed human existence in every way you could possibly think.
And it's growing exponentially from here. Just the introduction of AI now what's that going to do over the next 5 years?
Oh yeah, we didn't even touch robo-advisors and things like that, right?
Yeah, that gets into a whole another avenue.
So how is technology changing things? Well, it is, right? Plain and simple, it's changing everything. And some people, and especially if you're younger, you might be okay with the more and more things that you learn from online, the more and more things that you learn from just never even meeting a person. But for others, maybe it's a great tool to kind of find out some information and get some things going. But then maybe you want to sit down in front of somebody. And I think for me, there's still certain things where, and I know I'm over 50 now, but it's like, I'm not like get off my lawn, but there's still times where it's kind of like, there's certain things where I just want to stand and talk to somebody and look at them. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I think that there's a lot to do that. And I know that you have clients all over the country. So I'm not saying that you don't help people in other places, but simply,
So, we work with, online to us is changed for a lot of companies since COVID, right? The whole normalization of Zoom or an online meeting like this I've got clients locally now that will do Zoom meetings just because it's easy, right? It's, it saves them the 15, 20-minute drive in. I've got other clients that they don't want to do with that. They'd like to meet person and, face to face. That's fine. We can do it either way. It doesn't matter to me. I like in person still because it's online is a little hard to, get that personal touch. It was just like sending an email, right? Or a text versus picking up the phone or sitting in front of somebody. It's a totally different context.
Yeah, very true. Very true. So, it's going to continue to change things and we know that for sure. So at the end of the day, we'll just go ahead and just lean into it. So since we're on YouTube, subscribe to us. Go ahead and hit the little subscribe button.
Hit the technology.
Ring the bell, all that good kind of stuff. And that way you can catch future episodes as well as check out past episodes. We always try to talk about different things and hopefully share, useful nuggets of information that you're going to kind of glean some information from that and then decide at some point, okay, yeah, I need to maybe take a look at this or think about this a little bit more or put a little bit more effort into whatever it might be. So if you need some help, as always, reach out to a qualified professional, again, like Phil, who is a CPA and a personal financial specialist. And you can find him online at philstaxhacks.com. That's the podcasting website, but it does redirect you back around to his main, philstaxhacks.com, or call him at 248-888-7530. Phil, thanks for hanging out, my friend. I always appreciate you. Good to see you here on the interwebs, and we'll catch you next time on Phil's Tax Hacks and other retirement facts.
Phil?
Investment advisory services offered through AFS Wealth Management. The content of this program is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. Investments and or investment strategies involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will achieve its objectives.